Hey, Helen here, your host. Great to have you along for the second season of The Beautiful Side of Grief, where we continue to hear from people from all walks of life who have faced or have been involved with heart-wrenching loss and who have come out the other side with so many positives to share with others. I know this may seem like an impossibility for you right here, right now, to be in that space. And believe me, I understand. I lost my own gorgeous 18-year-old daughter and only child in a car accident. Yet, here I am 4 years later, sharing my own journey and those of others in the most heartwarming and joyful way. Each and every one of my guests share their own beautiful insights and their strategies for getting through their grief. And through these stories, I hope you'll find your own way to deal with your grief in whatever form that may take. I'll pop my guest links and any free resources in the episode notes, along with my website address if you'd like to know more about the energy work I do, as that was my lifesaver in my own grief journey. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you can keep informed of each weekly episode. So now let's see who our guest is this week. Originally from the US, my guest today is John T, as he likes to be known, and he's lived overseas for nearly 20 years. He started his working life young at the age of 13 years old, and after 30 years was made redundant in early 2020. It was then that he decided to share his personal life journey through podcasting. His initial program was called The Fortunate Son, as John had always felt very fortunate and blessed for his life journey, where he learned many lessons and met many amazing people from all walks of life around the world. John has had a lifelong experience in mental health and well-being, having dealt with multiple loved ones over the years committing suicide and suffering with various health and mental health issues. He has also had his own battles with self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. For this reason, The Fortunate Son was created to share people's life journeys, giving advice and counsel, and most importantly, letting people know that in this extremely difficult world environment, they are not alone. John currently lives in New Zealand and is the Managing Director of Tower Studios New Zealand. He currently is focused on creating and releasing episodes of The Paranormal Son, his latest weekly long-form program that explores the mysteries and realities behind topics ranging from UFOs and ghosts to lost civilizations, cryptids, life after death, reincarnation, psychic phenomenon, and so much more. Though today we are going to take a look at his experience with loss, particularly with how he dealt with the loss of his mum from the other side of the world, with whom he had a really close relationship with growing up. He talks about this and more in an open, pragmatic, and heartfelt way. I hope you'll get some really great insights from what he has to share. And as always, I'm grateful for you taking the time to listen, and I wish that your own journey be filled with love, happiness, and hope. So, John, great to have you with me here. And now I was going to call you a fellow Kiwi because you are living in New Zealand. So after all this time, do you consider yourself a Kiwi or are you still true blue American?
It's funny that you mention that. I would say I'm a Kiwi. I mean, I've been here for most of my formative years, pretty much from my mid-20s on. So the vast majority of kind of life platforms that we kind of go through, having your first house, your major careers, your relationship, all of that. I mean, I've been here in Auckland longer than I've lived anywhere in my life as far as like a city or a location. And it will be, another 5-6 years. I'll have been here as long as I was in the US. So yeah, first and foremost, we joke around. In fact, tonight when we were watching the Olympics, my partner was saying, oh, come on, the Brits beat the Germans. And because I've got a dachshund named William, I said to William, oh, don't worry, William, we're Germans because I'm a quarter German. So, we were joking and saying, oh, so we have a lot of fun with that. But first and foremost, my loyalties as far as who I owe what, I mean, no offense to the US, obviously I'm from there. I love my friends and family, but to me, it's, I made my choice. I'm a New Zealander. I'm a citizen. I live here. And, I would do whatever it took to help out my country or, I do my best to help out in general. And I have been one of the things that a lot of friends and that have known me a long time here, they always say to me, oh, you know what I really admire is that you came here and you do your best to kind of learn about the culture to fit in. You know, you're a big rugby fan. I'm a huge Auckland rugby fan, huge Blues fan.
Yeah.
And so a long suffering until this year, we just finally won a title. We won the year before I came. And then we haven't won since. I was at the World Cup quarterfinals in 2011 at Eden Park. And I was about 10 rows back when we played Argentina. And it was one of the most surreal moments of my life. It was like being in a national cathedral. I know it's only a sport, but the electricity in Eden Park on that night, I've never felt anything like it in my life.
Yes, but you also know what Kiwis are like if we lose something big like that. It's like the whole country goes into mourning,
Yes.
whether you
Yes.
rugby or not. It's huge. And look, I have to say, it's wonderful to have you here. Certainly is.
Oh, thanks for having me. I mean, so my current podcast that I do is about kind of paranormal, unexplained mysteries type of thing, but mental health, well-being, our life journey, and the human condition is very, very near and dear to my heart. I've had a lot of great things in my life, and I'm not going to sit here and tell a sob story and say I've had the worst life ever. I have not. But like everyone, I've had my trials and tribulations. A lot of it has been my own, of course, as we all kind of go through it. But one of the things that I always try to do is anytime anyone reaches out in this field, and especially if they've got a great background as you do with your lovely daughter's life and experience, I'm always happy to get on and talk about it. And as I was saying, I told you off air before my original program, which is about this, I had such a lovely conversation with you and we had such a great talk. I kind of made that captain's call because I'm a solo podcaster. I can do what I want. I've decided to kind of reboot that show as best as I can. And basically around just conversations rather than me getting on the mic and doing solo. And I'll do it as and when I can. But I thought,
Yes.
why not? You know, that if it's things like this out of podcasting, this is the thing I love the most is connecting with other people, as you were saying,
Yeah.
having these great conversations and also not having that day job. This is my social interaction a lot of time. So it really does get my brain firing and it gets my juices flowing for everything I do in life. And I mean, I am a bit of a homebody and I don't mind being a hermit, but it's great to catch up with lovely people like yourself. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And I love that you say that too, because it's exactly how I feel. I have not yet had one guest on my show where I haven't finished the show or the interview feeling like really uplifted and really like passionate about what I'm doing. It's just like every single person I learn from, as much as they're sharing their story, I'm going along that journey with them and learning at the same time. And I just love it. So, yeah. So shall we get into it? Because
Of course.
you were talking about your mum and your experience with your mum who you lost. And so we're going to get into that a bit more. But first of all, you had a very close bond with your mum, didn't you? So why don't you share with us and share with our listeners what that bond was like?
No, of course. So my mom used to have lots of, kind of pet names for me as most moms do for their children. My mom used to always call me the runt, the caboose, the trailer, because my two older sisters, the oldest one was 10 years older than me, and the other one was 8 years older. And I was born in the 70s. And at that time, if you had children over the age of 30, really, but especially kind of 32 to 34, it was very late in life to have children. And my father and the doctor at the time both suggested that I should be aborted because they were afraid that I could kill my mother. My mom had sickle cell anemia, among other things. And the doctor had also said to my mom that if I did live, then the odds were high that I would end up being special needs. And my mom said to the doctor at the time, no, I'm going to have him. Even if it kills me, everything deserves a chance. And it's one of the quotes of my mom that I never forget. And again, I'm not perfect, but in my life, I always try and think of that, my mom gave me the chance to exist. I know all of us, yes, that is the case. I get that 100%. But in this instance, my mom had a very real choice to put her health and safety and her life in front of me. She already had 2 kids. She could have just said, nope, it's not worth the risk. But my mom refused. She said, no, he deserves a chance. So thankfully, my mom had me. And then from day one, I mean, me and my mom had a super close connection. We had the same astrological sign. And I know not everyone is into that, but as far as the zodiac went, we had the same sign. We had the same Chinese zodiac. And as far as my mom was very much, I know this isn't a PC term, so I do apologize for it, but my mom was very much the tomboy. My mom was very much hunter, fisher. She taught me how to drive a car. She taught me how to hunt and fish and all the things that my father should have been there to do, how to work. I mean, I remember at 4 or 5 years old, my mom taking me out deer hunting, And so like you say, I mean, our connection was as close as, I would say it was much more akin to almost like twins versus mother and son. And I look back in retrospect, and sometimes I feel so terrible about some of the things. Because like I remember being very young and being at home. We lived out in the middle of nowhere, and my mom would go and work 2 or 3 jobs. So she'd be on her feet for 12 or 16 hours. She'd come home. I'd be sad because I had no one to play with, and my mom going out in the field because we had like a lifestyle block, like a small farm, and going out and throwing the ball so I could hit a baseball in that. And I look back at that in retrospect, and I just think, oh my gosh, she had such long days and everything else, but she still, at the end of the day, she had that time for me to put me first again. And my mom was always a giver. She was always putting other people first. And I've inherited that gene, so to speak. As they say, we so often pick up with things from our parents. And I've had to work in life especially since she's passed, I've had to work into, yeah, that's fine, but also putting myself first once in a while, because I'm the type that if I go to get a coffee, I'll say, like, if I go out to a cafe, I'll go, oh, well, my partner isn't here. She'd love a coffee, and I'll get her a coffee and I'll bring it home. And I've had to learn that it's okay to go and, no offense to her, but I mean, when she goes to work, it's not like she brings me home a coffee every time she comes from work. So it's okay to treat yourself and reward yourself and not feel guilty that, oh, someone else isn't here, or I didn't do something for someone else. But yeah, we were, like you say, I mean, we were so close. And early on, I used to get very sad because me and my father, I knew my father, there's a story behind it. He basically had a very bad chainsaw accident, got addicted to morphine, and he was never the same. So we were never close. They were separated basically from as early as I can remember. And as a teenager, I felt very bad about not having a dad around. And then as I got a little older into my late teens, I realized, you idiot, basically, how lucky you are to have one parent who's so strong for you. There are so many people in this world who have no parents, or they have 2 parents that weren't there for them. And then I really started realizing, hey, you're so blessed. Don't feel bad for yourself. Just stop the pity party and enjoy what you've got.
Yeah, she certainly sounds like a remarkable lady. Absolutely. And it's not until, like, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And as you get older, you can look back and go, oh my goodness, if only I knew back then what I know now, how my life would have been so, so different. But we're in that space for a reason, because we don't have that awareness, and it is what it is. And I mean, it's great that you have awareness now to take through with your own family and your own partner and your children. So yeah, that's pretty special. So how did that bond help you when you found out she had cancer and you were stuck on the other side of the world here in New Zealand? How did that bond between you both help with that long distance connection?
So I've learned in life, and again, I don't mean to say this is the only way people can look at things. It's just in my own coping and the way I've learned to look at things. I look at every kind of human trait we have. Almost all of them are kind of double-edged. So I've tried to look at it much less of this is good or this is bad. It's as you know, as we get older, the world is not black and white. There's all kinds of shades of gray. Well, one of the things is that, for example, you can have somebody who's very kind of loud and they yell a lot. But on the other side of that, the positive side to that is that they may be very passionate. And if you remove that kind of energetic side, you might remove their passion. So, I mean, all I'm saying is, like, with my mom, one of her things was that she was very stubborn, and so am I. But the stubbornness also comes with a tenacity that we don't give up in things, and we're survivors. And whatever it is, we'll put our heads down. Yeah, when we get knocked for a loop, we might step back and go, "Wow, that sucked." But we very quickly would suck it up and then buckle down and say, "No, I'm not going to let this beat me." Well, my mom had cancer once, and about 5 years before the time that she passed away, and she had it in her throat, and was trying to think of where else, but she had to have chemo and radiation on her throat. She went through it. She came to see us, stayed with us a couple times, and one of the times I caught her smoking again. And we had a big knockdown, drag out argument. But the thing was, she wasn't getting was, I said to her, you're not a baby. You're not a child. Throughout her life, she tried to quit smoking, and I caught her several times smoking but I know she was projecting her guilt onto me by getting defensive. But I said, look, I'm not going to lecture you about it. I want you to be here for as long as you can be here, but that's your choice at the end of the day. I'm not going to follow you around and see if you're smoke. I mean, what's the point? You're an adult, you do what you want to do. And unfortunately, when she got her second diagnosis, I got an email basically saying, can you call your mom? It was her person she was living with at the time. And I knew it was not good. I got the vibe from, there was nothing written there necessarily, but I had that vibe. This is not good. And it was just towards the end of like Christmas, New Year's Eve here. And so.
Sorry, just to interrupt.
That's okay. No, that's okay. 2016.
2016.
So 5 years
So
ago.
that's when you got that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I got this email, and it's one of those things where it's hewn into my brain. I got that email, I read it, and I went, this is not going to be good. So I went and had a nap, actually. And I went and had a nap. And then when I got up, then I called because I knew it was going to be draining, whatever it was. Sure enough, the cancer had come back. This time it was in her liver, in her lungs. And anyone who knows anything about liver cancer is what killed David Bowie, among many others. And generally, if you live a year to 2 years with liver cancer, you're doing really well. Once it's in your liver, you're pretty much toast, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And she blamed the doctor. She was, very aggravated. She said, they should have caught it sooner. And maybe they should have. But the reality was it wasn't. And don't get me wrong. I mean, we all know this. Well, most people know the 7 stages of grief. And that's the first thing is denial and deflection. And you blame it on other people. Yeah. But yeah, it was really difficult, of course. And the main thing to me was that as horrible as it was although I wasn't there in person, to watch her diminish from who I knew to who she was when she passed away was very difficult. But at least I had that time to talk to her. It was only about a month and a bit. I think it was about 60 days. And she passed away she passed away in early March. I think it was around the 11th or 12th. And I think I found out she had it maybe around the 20th, something like that, of January. So, yeah, and it was difficult, but so many people have someone get on a plane or they'll leave and they see, like my stepdad, who to me was my dad, is grumpy. I mean, we had a massive age gap. He was 50 years older than me. So he lived through the Great Depression and he fought in World War II. So we didn't see eye to eye, but by the end of his life, me and him were as close as we could be because he had 9 biological children and they didn't see eye to eye with him for whatever. They weren't there for him. And by the time I came here, I came to New Zealand, and he passed away that year at Thanksgiving time. And I didn't get to say goodbye, basically died at home, passed away. So, I mean, I'm very fortunate that in leaving the country, we already kind of had that kind of here's the line, I love you, I'm proud of you type of thing, where some
Yeah.
people never get that. But like I say, as much as it sucked, at least I did have that chance. Most days I get home, even at work, there were times because my boss and that they knew how much she meant to me. So sometimes during the day, I'd call up my mom or I'd email her. And but that connection, you're right. I mean, it helped massively because those big questions that many people have, are my parents proud of me? How do they feel about this or that? Most of those had already been answered and I knew it, but still we got the chance to reinforce that. And I got the chance to tell her what she meant to me. And, she got to tell me she was proud of me. And yeah, and it was hard, but like you say, I mean, there was no, it wasn't one of those things where, like I say, if this was my biological father, he would have had all kinds of emotions mixed in. With it being my mom, it was very much pure love, recover. If you can't recover, we'll go down this road, however we have to go down it. And I told her, because when she got near the end, as is often the case, she's like, I'm tired, I'm sore, everything. And I just told her, just go. When you're ready, go.
Yeah.
You don't need to do it for my sake. We've been able to talk. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see each other, but we've been able to talk. And the last time I talked to her, her voice was just completely gone. And you know how it is, like you can literally hear them whispering on the phone. And it wasn't long after that, they gave her morphine. And when they give you liquid morphine at home, it's very close.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
Absolutely.
Sure enough, she passed away very, very soon after. But like I say, I mean, you and your daughter have a lovely story, but not everyone obviously has that. And so I am very thankful that at least I got that chance.
And let's touch on that a little bit more, because that's what I find is that you need to take those opportunities to let the people you love know that you love them, and don't assume that they know that. You need to actually make a point of letting them know and just having those conversations, because you never know what's around the corner. So you don't want to be left with regret, which I know sometimes just, sends people in an absolute spiral when they suddenly lose somebody and they say, oh, I didn't get the chance to, and fill in the gap, and that's heartbreaking.
I know your listeners won't see this because it's audio, but I just want to show you one thing that I learned about my mom. So I don't know if you can see this, but it's basically instructions on my death, because that's one of the things that I learned was that I found out that if you've got a will, even if it's not written by the JP and all of that, if you've got a written will with your instructions and all of that, the odds are that that will be suitable in New Zealand courts. And that's one of the things that I learned from it, was that, again, because when it's my turn to go, because face it, I mean, maybe there's some really young people who might hear this that maybe they'll live in a future where we're not going to, but we're all going to go. Okay. So I don't want my partner or whoever's left after me to be stressing and running around and freaking out. I have said to her, whatever you do, I know you will do your best. Don't stress about what happens. In my personal opinion, when I'm gone, I'm not going to be using my body. I won't be in it. So you don't worry about that. You do what's easiest and best for you at the time, because I know, and I'm sure that you've been through this, when that time comes, it's, at least to me, it's just like surreal. It's like you're living out a dream, or you're living a virtual reality, and things just, they don't necessarily, someone could come in and say to you, meteor's hitting Earth in 3 hours and everything's going to be wiped out. And you just be like, okay, because it's just like, it's all the same at that point. And having gone through this with the other family passings that we've had in our family, I knew I just want to make everything easy. And so that's it. In there, I've got, and again, those things that, the bank account. And does she know the details for this bank account? And does she know where this money is? And does she know the value of this car? Or does she know I've got these shares? Now that I've written all that out, I can sleep at night. I don't stress. I don't worry about, what happens if. And that's one of the other things too, was that I did it long before Mom passed away. But one of my advice to people definitely is, if you can afford to do it, go out and get some kind of life insurance. I mean, even if it's $50,000 to cover your funeral expenses and that, take that burden off of your loved one. Because again, we had it in our family, didn't have it. Oh, we need to scrape up the money. Now, lucky for my partner's family, I am the one who is actually quite good financially, and I'm good at saving and budgeting and all that. Again, thank you to mom. So when they needed the money because they couldn't even get their mother released from the funeral home because no one had the money, guess who had to run around and organize it? And again, I know what it's like. So that's what I'm saying to people. And I've said it before on my program. It sounds so simple, but even like I say, even if it's just $10,000, take that stress off of your loved ones.
Yeah.
And a $10,000 life insurance policy is nothing. I mean, it's a few dollars a week. Just take that stress off of your loved ones. One less thing for them to worry about, because even if they've got to go to the bank and say, look, I've got this insurance policy. Here it is. You can see it is. Can you loan me the money to get the funeral sorted and then I'll pay you back? At least you've got that up your sleeve. Yes. Because the amount of things, the stress I see and everything else worried about these things. And in hindsight, of course, it's like, oh, we should have done this. But that's the thing. Do it. Just go out and do it, folks. It's not that onerous. And that was the other thing that I wanted to make sure was that our mortgage was basically, so if anything happened to me, my partner didn't have to worry about how you're going to pay for the house. It's done, and it's not everyone is in that situation. I get it, but everyone should be able to at least a $5,000 life insurance to pay for your funeral, because you take that stress off.
Yeah. Because that's what I've got. So I'm well and truly covered. If I go, nobody has to worry about that. That's all covered. And I did that after I lost my daughter. I mean, I was never expecting to be, that she would be the one that would go through it. And so actually I had to go back to work very early in the piece. And I have to say to people that if you have the opportunity to take that time to really allow yourself to grieve and to give yourself the space to do that, I would recommend taking that and preparing for that now. Because it's horrible when you're up against those stresses. Yeah.
I should have done that. I took a week off, and in retrospect, it was nowhere near enough. I've always been a workaholic, and what I thought was that I'd go back to work and I'd pour myself, but it just didn't work. Like,
that's the same.
No, that's right. Absolutely. And that's what, because I was a distribution and warehouse manager. So things, picking and packing orders, stock inventory, transit, all of that. And it was one of those things where I've always been, algebra is not my thing, but adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, I'm of a generation where we were still taught to do all that in your head. So normally if someone would walk in and say, hey, JT, 2 plus 2, I'd go, oh yeah, 4. But during that time, it was almost like I had short circuits in the brain. It's like, if you said that to me, 2 plus 2, I'd go, I'd think about it. And then when I'd give you the answer, I'd still say 5. I'd give you the wrong answer, even after taking 4 times as long as I normally would. And it's just the synapses were just not firing at all. Yeah. So I agree. I should have taken more time.
Grief plunges you into this place. Like I felt like I had cotton wool in my head, where I couldn't think clearly. And I used to double check myself all the time at work, because I didn't trust myself that I was actually making or saying the right things. Oh gosh. Yeah.
And my manager, my manager at the time, he's still a friend now, but we've got very different ways of looking at life. And the thing was, at that time, because he didn't necessarily do grief, he wasn't really close with his family, so he couldn't understand the impact it was having on me, because the way he looked at it is they're dead and gone and there's nothing you can do about it. And in retrospect, I mean, we've had these talks, because literally when I came back, had the week off, came back, he called a meeting after the second or third day, and he sat me down and he basically said, if you're here, you're here. If you're not, F off and go home. And I took that really personally, because I'm a loyal soldier. I've always been a workaholic. Of all of my faults, one thing with me is my loyalty is like, if you show loyalty to me and you're there for me, if you put your neck out for me, I'm loyal to a fault. I mean, I will do whatever it takes to, like if you put your name out there and get me hired somewhere, I will move heaven and earth to make you look a good light because you've done that for me. And so at the time, I mean, it was really, that was an open wound for me for a long time with him. But that's now, water under the bridge. But again, thankfully, that's one of the things that I was able to heal that and keep him because with me, friends in my life, I look at it as it's the family you get to choose. So I've got lots of friends in my life that are family to me. When I call them brother or sister, I mean it as a familial bond, not just a term to say, hey, brother. It's like, no, you're family to me. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, don't apologize at all. But I was just going to say to you, why do you suppose, like I know he sounds like he was a black and white person, so there's that side of it, but do you think he'd actually experienced firsthand that deep loss? And so that's
No.
why he had no understanding of it. And I feel that a lot of people who don't experience deep loss or, losing someone so treasured to them, they don't get that grief that surrounds that.
No, that's right, because he was a very guarded person. And out of everyone aside from his partner, I probably got to know him better than anyone else. And like I say, to this day, he's one of those people where if I needed help now and it was like, I need $5,000 or what, he would do it. No questions asked. I mean, he is that, he's that close to me. But because him and his parents had a very different relationship. Now, see, I had both because my biological father was abusive, physically abusive. He used to beat me and everything else. So I've had both. But with him, he only had that. And so for him, his parental connection was not like mine was. And so what he was trying to do was motivate me in the only way that he knew how to motivate me. And most of the time, see, like me, like if I've screwed up something, I punish myself more than you ever can. If you're my manager and I know I've screwed up, I beat myself up because it's like, I feel like you put your faith in me, everything else, I screwed this up. So, and not everyone gets that, but when you've known me for a while and you managed me for a while, we got to, where we were near the end of me working for him, most of the time he'd just say like, you screwed up, right? Okay, let's move on. Because he already knew there was nothing he could do or say to me that would be, that would get the point through more than what I'd already done to myself. Because, I'd go away and I'll be like, oh, I screwed up. I got to figure out how to sort this out right next time. But at that time, I know in retrospect, he had a lot to worry about. I get that, but he was trying to motivate me as best he knew. It's probably just the one time in all of our time together that he just really struck the wrong chord. And again, as you say, he couldn't understand. And even to this day, when I'll tell him, I still miss my mom or this reminds me of my mom or whatever, he's there and he'll always be a friend, he'll always listen, but he still can't understand it. He's still, I think there's only a few people in his life he could lose that he would understand and say, yeah, right. But those people are all my age or younger. So the odds are that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. I hope.
I hope too. But I get that because you know what? I was not close to my mum at all. And I lost her when I was very young, at 23. And, losing my mum, I dealt with that. I, got over that. It wasn't the same as losing my daughter. Now, she was my absolute world. She was everything to me. And that was the difference, I think. It was a depth of the love that you have for that person. And not being disrespectful to, anybody that doesn't feel that way, when they lose somebody. That was completely different because my daughter was a world to me. And I felt like somebody had just opened my chest up and ripped half of my heart out of me. So yeah, that was tough.
I agree. That's how I felt. I just felt like at the time, especially strangely enough, I don't know quite how it was for you, but strangely enough for me, it wasn't nearly as bad early on as it was a month or two later. That's when it really, because I had a few dreams where I'd get a phone call and I'd miss the phone call or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And as weird as this sounds to most people, I still expected to get a phone call or an email because my mom, one of her things was no matter what time of day or night it was, she'd always answer the phone morning, right? So I fully expected to get a phone call going, morning, son, and it was only when that never materialized after a few months, then it started really hitting home. And yeah, again, it wasn't like I loved our time together. I couldn't have asked for more time and everything, better time. But it was just one of those, like when you finally get that this is it. It's never going to be like it was. And for me, it took several months to get to that point.
Now, I also want to touch on the fact that, what you experience long distance is what a lot of people are experiencing now going through the pandemic, losing loved ones that they can't get to say goodbye to or even get to see at all or even speak to. And, how tough that must be for so many people in today. And are there any strategies? Are you okay?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, don't apologize at all. Like, I know that really touched you, and yeah, I know we're sort of bringing up some stuff for you. But I think that you're able to help these people, because you've been in that situation with somebody you love dearly. And what were some of the strategies that you've used to cope with that when you did realize that, hey, I'm not going to get that phone call anymore?
Well, one of the first things is what you said before, and I'm sorry. I enjoy these kind of conversations so much. I can start running down a track and forget about the other track. But one of the things that you said, I 1000% am on board with. Never leave it until it's too late. Tell people, especially Kiwi males, okay? Because again, I've been here since I was, in my early 20s, and I've got friends here that are like family to me. And I know older Kiwi guys, especially, they don't do a lot of love and it's not really their thing. Tell your friends, tell the people in your life that are close to you how much they mean to you. You don't have to use the big L word if you don't want to, because I know some people, you can't say you love some. Don't then. Just tell them, I appreciate what you've been to me. I mean, I have over and over and over. But again, when I was really young as well, my mom's dad, my grandfather was the world to her. And we were living several thousand kilometers away when he passed away. Now, he lived to be 95. He had a good life and everything else. But because I'd already kind of been through that, if it makes sense, with my mom, yes, it was super hard. But I also knew there was nothing I could do once the time came because I knew her wishes. She was very clear about her wishes. She wanted to be cremated and she wanted her ashes spread where her parents had been spread. So there was nothing I could do that was, going to be of any great help. And I am forever appreciative that mom had those plans, enacted those plans. So that took that pressure off of me. First and foremost, that's it. Tell people, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a friend, whether it's family, tell them how much they mean to you. If they've done something in your life that has made the difference to you, freaking tell them, because once that time, and it doesn't have to be passing away. It can be that you move cities. It can be that they move on with their life. They retire. You don't get to see them again. There's been several studies done and several authors that I've read about, and where they will go to people who are near death. They're in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and they'll say, what are your biggest regrets in life? And almost all of them say the same two regrets at the top of their list. First one is saying, I'll get around to it, for example, travel or some new experience. That's one of the first ones. And the second one is almost always telling people how much they mean to you. So again, folks, tell people, this is what I always say when people say, like I'll say it'll be Mother's Day or Father's Day, because I've lost them both. And, I'll say, mine's passing. Oh, sorry. And I'll say, look, don't be sorry. Do me a favor. Tell your mom, tell your dad you love them. Because again, once that time comes, then, and I mean, it can literally happen as fast as with my grandfather. He went to sleep and he didn't wake up in the morning. He woke up in the middle of the night, told my grandma, I love you, kissed her on the head. She thought it was strange. She woke up in the morning. went to cook him breakfast. He was always up first. He wasn't up. She went to check on him at 11 and he passed in his sleep. So, I mean, that's how fast it can happen. And you fully know this, Helen, I know. But that's it, folks. Take that time. I mean, there are friends that we might not see for 5 or 6 years that mean the world to us. Tell them, again, I have to use the love word. Just say, hey, I really appreciate that you've been there for me in my life. I appreciate all the great things you've done for me. And I'm a firm believer that you can meet someone today who has better intentions for you than someone you've known your whole life. So don't look at the length of time you've known someone. Look at the quality of the connection and tell those people what they mean to you and let them know. Because like me, I'm big on loyalty, and there are people in my life and friends that have kind of drifted out of my life. Now, I don't wish them any harm. I don't wish them any ill. But yeah, sometimes you do kind of think, I wonder if I've made, because they've kind of gone their own way. They've kind of drifted away. You do kind of wonder, were we just kind of friends of convenience or what? I don't dwell on it too much, but that's that's the key thing to me. That's the first and foremost. The second thing is talk to people, especially men. In this country, I mean, it's starting to change, but when I came here very early on, no one talked about depression. No one talked about mental health and anxiety, especially with men. Oh, no, we don't talk about that. We're Kiwi blokes, number 8 wire. We're hard. Hillary, we climb Mount Everest. And that is an admirable thing to do. But at the same time, if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your loved ones. Because at the end of the day, if you just break down or you take your own life, the onus and the heartbreak you put on those others around you. And this is not to try and guilt anyone into doing any. All I'm saying is, if you can't talk to your loved ones, if you're a churchgoer, talk to your priest. If you need a, professional health, call one of the, I mean, I haven't always agreed with the things, that Mike King's done, but I tip my hat to that man so much for him raising mental health awareness. And and again, I'm just some guy, right? But the thing is, everything that I may have disagreed with Mike King in the past, he has completely vindicated in my, I look up to that man so much now because he's taken the time. We're such a small country, and it's so easy for people to laugh at you and say, oh, you got mental issues. And he doesn't care. And I respect that man so much. And I'm so appreciative for what he's done. Because again, this isn't a 20-year-old influencer. This is an older man, older generation telling Kiwi blokes, basically, open up to people. I mean, one of my jobs, I've had a very long history in the food industry and farming and all of that. We had multiple cases where we had people on the farm installing equipment, and farmers would say to them, hey, I just got to go around the back and check something out. And then the installer would hear a gunshot, and the farmer had gone taking their own life because they were $5 million in debt or whatever it was, and they didn't feel they could talk to anyone. All I'm saying, folks, is don't be that person. I know I don't know what it's like to be $5 million in debt. No doubt there. I can't understand that, but I can understand what it's like to feel like there's nothing in this world to live for, or nothing that is going to make your life worth living for. And I can tell you this, I can't speak for everyone, but I can tell you myself, time heals all wounds, all things pass. Now that's good and bad. Good things pass as well as bad things. But at the end of the day, talk to people. Whether, like I say, I've said it on the air so many times, and to this day, if you've got no one to talk to, you've got me. Send me an email, get a hold of me. And I'm no expert. I just know my own life. I know what I've gone through. But if someone needs to talk and you just want someone anonymous and you go, hey, look, call me Bill or whatever it is, can we talk? Get a hold of me, by all means. I would rather have someone take the time to quote unquote bother me than use a permanent solution for a temporary problem, which is how I personally look at suicide. And I've been there. I've been very close myself many times. Thankfully, I've never done it, obviously, or I wouldn't be here. But
I'm not laughing.
Fine. No, it's okay. I am. as much as some people don't like it, I'm very much the gallows humor guy. I mean, I'm the guy who would be standing on the gallows, having a bit of a laugh about it, because life, at the end of the day, the odds of us being where we are now in this universe, on this planet, are trillions to one. So at least have a little bit of fun with it. I get that not everything's a laughing matter, but to me, I do try and say, at the end of the day, what are the odds that we would even be born into this, existence at all? So yeah, we might as well have a bit of a laugh about it.
So let me ask you, did you know, were you here in New Zealand when Mike King was on air as a comedian? Because he was really revered as one of New Zealand's top comedians. He was always on television in one show or another in one
Yeah.
capacity. And all came across as that happy, happy guy with a joke for everything and a quick repartee. And actually, underneath it all, he had severe depression and he would go home and he wouldn't be that fun guy that you saw on television. And I think that's what shocked so many New Zealanders when he first started talking about his mental health and depression and things like that, because that's not how we knew him and that's not how we saw him. And I think that's a key to it. So many people put on a face, put on a mask, and they show the world, but actually don't be afraid to take that mask off and just be vulnerable and let people know that you're not coping and let them know that today's not a good day. And you don't have to go into any depth, but you'll be surprised how many people are there to support you, who will just lend, put out a helping hand, expecting nothing in return. And
And
I think, yeah.
and in the time that I've been here, and again, I've obviously, and I don't mean this again to sound, a crotchety old man or whatever, but we both know that in New Zealand, in general, up until recently, the managerial world is very much a man's world, and you're expected to be, you're expected to be the man and strong and everything else. And I've lived that, and I've done that, and I've done the 90-hour and 100-hour weeks and everything else. And I can tell you that, especially in the last kind of 5 to 8 years, it's changing. Whereas in the past, if you said something like that, look, I can't deal with it today. I need a bit of a break. You would have been howled down, you would have been cut down, tall poppy. But the message is changing. And I can tell you that, and to me, it's very positive, because I've been in management roles where you just basically say, I need a mental day off. And I do it with the podcast sometimes. Yeah, there are times I just can't cope. The connections are not hitting, the wiring's frizzed, and I still feel bad about it, but I know that if I don't take that time, then the ramifications. I've done this. I've ridden the train to the end of the tracks and off the tracks, and then gone, well, way back then I should have just taken a step back and had a couple days off. And so I can say that there are still going to be work cultures that aren't that way, but I have worked in some of the most male-dominated work cultures: meat cutting, fisheries, cold stores, truck driving, distribute. So what I'm saying is, if those areas are slowly changing, I know the more diverse areas are already ahead of the curve. And to me, it is really important. Like you say, I'm a workaholic. So for a long time, it was hard when someone would say something like that. Oh, yeah, I'm not feeling up to it. I'd kind of say to myself, oh, well, come on, harden up. But the thing is that we all go through that. And that's the biggest thing out of. So to those of you who have not gone through this, the biggest takeaway I can give you from losing my mom is, it will happen to you sooner or later. Now, there are some people out there in this world who just have no connections like that. I get that. But you will have a connection to someone or something. I'm so close to my dachshund, right? So
Yeah. I was just going to bring up animals. Yeah.
He is like a son to me, and he means more to me than just about anything. I mean, no offense to the humans out there in my life that I love, but I mean, me and him, we are connected at the hip. And he's had some rough times. And during the lockdown, during COVID, he had to have back surgery and he's never come right. He still doesn't walk. So I'm basically his full-time nurse. But all I'm saying is that when things happen to him, it impacts me 10 times more than if it happens if I hurt myself, I'm fine. But if it happens to him, it's 10 times worse to me. So all I'm saying is, as much as this is a kind of a paraphrase of our current prime minister, be kind and understand that. See, one of the things that me personally, it took me ages to work out was that something could happen to me, and I've been through exactly what someone else has been through. But just because it didn't impact me as much as it does them, it doesn't mean I get to be the judge and the gatekeeper of it and say, well, I've been through that. It's not that bad. So, for example, I suffer from migraines. I've had them my whole life. Now, migraines, fevers, and there's one other thing I just can't remember off the top of my head, but those things lay me low. If I can be sick, I can work through it. But if I've got a fever, I have to pull plug. Now, there are other people that it can just be runny nose. But what I'm saying is I can't look at it through the lens of what I can deal with. It's like a pain threshold thing. And it doesn't make me more of a man than someone else or more of a better person because I can cope with it. All I'm saying, folks, is because, again, I'm guilty of it. I think everyone's been guilty of it in our lives at some time. Just because something doesn't have a major impact on you doesn't mean it doesn't impact someone else in a different way. So, be understanding, try to understand if someone isn't coping. And at the end of the day, like, especially when we get into work and management, again, I know what it's like because when people didn't come to work, I'd be the one there until midnight doing it. So I fully understand. But at the end of the day, try and be empathetic, try and understand what your fellow humans are going through. And yes, there are always going to be people that take advantage of any situation, but that doesn't mean that, we just say, oh, well, because one person screwed it up, we're just going to, toss it out for everyone. And like I say, that is one thing I am really glad that I've seen change since I've been here. The mental health awareness, people understanding that your body is important, but your mind is just as important. You can be 100% physically fit and not be firing on all cylinders, as we were just talking about a little while ago, Helen, and you will only perform at 20% of your capacity or whatever it may be. Because if the computer isn't working at the end of the day, it's like the car is stuttering and
Yep.
Yep.
No, I just think what you're sharing is such important information, John. I mean, really, these are the things that we need to be thinking about, talking about, really exploring for ourselves, because it is about those connections. But it's also too, I don't know about you, but for me, I could have gone into the dark, deep pit of despair with Tara, but I chose to look at my life with her with gratitude, to be grateful for the 18 years I had with her and everything we shared, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything, but grateful for all of that. And I think it's that gratitude that actually just kept me slowly going up and up and up. So I just could see more light at the end of that tunnel, and that I was going to actually survive this and get through this. And, look, I know, like me, March is a really difficult month for you, isn't it? Share what March is for you, because that's when you lost your mum, but there's also some more stuff going on around there. And do you do anything special to help you, just cope with that month?
So when I was growing up, there'd be certain times of the year where my mom would just get really moody and she'd kind of go into her own shell or into her own world, and she'd disappear. And she, like I say, we had, she used to tend 2.5 acres of crops by herself, literally by hand. So she used a rototiller to break up the soil, but everything else was manual work. And she'd just disappear. She'd start spending lots of time out there, whatever. And I couldn't understand at a young age. But the reason why was, like, for example, she had a younger brother and they were coming home in the U.S. from school breaking up for Thanksgiving, and he got hit by a train. And so from that day on, obviously, Thanksgiving time and his birthday were bad times. Her ex-husband, who was my two sisters' father, he died at 36 years old. He had a heart attack. He was a truck driver. He was out of the cab of his truck, and he had a heart attack. He couldn't get to his medication. He passed away. So again, in and around the time that he passed away, in and around his birthday, in and around their anniversary. And what is it's not funny, it's more ironic to me. I look back at it now, and there are certain times of the year I won't even necessarily know. Yeah, I'll know it's this month or whatever, but I'll just start oh, I'll start reminiscing, or I'll kind of get a bit. I wouldn't call it. It's not like full blown depression. It's much more like the melancholy or the doldrums.
Yeah.
It's very much that kind of. You feel blah. You're very blah, and then I'll look at the calendar and I'll go, well, you moron, this is why it was around this person's birthday, and so March for us. So I'm a quarter Irish, and March was always St. Patrick's Day, and outside of kind of like Christmas and New Year's and that, St. Patrick's Day has always been a very special holiday to me, to the point that oftentimes if I'm working, I'll take St. Patrick's Day off. I'll listen to Irish music. I'll cook Irish food. I'll drink. I celebrate my Irish side at that time, because out of my mutt mixed lineage, that's the part of me that I connect the most to. And so, but like you were saying before, Helen, 100%. As time went on, I look at all the good times. I remember the positives. And also, one of the key things I think that everyone out there who suffers needs to hear is, you pass first. So role reversal. So you've gone instead of them. Would you want them to be sad and upset or would you want them to be exactly? You would want them to be thinking about the good times. You would want them to be basically, again, shameless plug for the Irish. You would want the wake. You would want the positivity. You would want them celebrating your life. You would want them thinking all the good things, all the good times you had. And so that is an excellent point you brought up. I fully agree with that. So yeah, March can be difficult. There are other times of the year that can be difficult. And what I've had to learn is, as with other people, again, if someone is just being moody, they're being more distant than they usually would, just broach it. Just say, are you all right? Is everything okay? Do you need someone to talk to? Now, a lot of times the answer is going to be, no, I'm fine. But at least you asked, okay? Because again, and I'm not trying to guilt anyone here, but we've all heard those horror stories where someone's not right at work or school or whatever, and then you find out later they've taken their own life or they've done something really horrible. And again, I'm not trying to guilt anyone, but sometimes those one-on-one conversations, you look back at them and you go, that was where my life changed. And I was very fortunate with my original program that I did have someone say to me, look, I was in a very dark place. I was contemplating suicide. I heard your program and it made me take a step back and just say, maybe I just need to think about this differently. And I said from the beginning, if I change one person, if I did something to affect one person's life for the better, job done. And I was very fortunate that I had someone give me that feedback. And again, I mean, it's not, the world isn't all sunshine and roses, and not everyone who is close to taking a drastic decision like that is going to step back from the brink. I fully get that. So don't think that I only see, it can only be positive. But folks, at the end of the day, if you're near the end of your tether, that's why I'm so glad we've got things like we've got the numbers you can call. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but like the mental health number, you can just call up and talk to someone.
Yeah.
Make it one day at a time. I mean, even if you say, okay, fine, today I'm not going to take this drastic step, you never know. I mean, the next day you could find out something really wonderful, or someone wonderful could enter your life. And then you look back and say, I'm so glad I didn't, because again, the way I look at it and the way I said it, the best way I've heard it summed up is, don't make a permanent decision for a temporary problem, because oftentimes, I mean, there are people out there, like, they're suffering with chronic pain. They can't live on a day-to-day basis. I get that that's a bit more extreme than kind of someone whose, partners left them or they've lost their job or whatever. But oftentimes, folks, just do your best. Just even if it's 1 hour at a time, you've just got to get through the next hour, get through that hour and then reassess, and then get through the next hour and then reassess. as we age, like for me anyway, I'm so fortunate because I can look back at my life, and so often, if I'm in a really bad situation, I can go, well, you've been through worse. Okay.
Yeah.
And even if I get out the other side of it and I hadn't been through worse, and the next time I can point at that time and go, that was worse than this time. But when you're younger, again, when I was a teenager, like I say, I used to cut up my arms with kitchen knives and all kinds of things like that because I didn't have that life experience to be able to refer to look back at. And again, I get that my experiences don't, not everyone is going to connect with them and go, oh yeah, that makes me feel better. But there's someone, almost everyone, we've got someone in our life we can go to and at least say, hey, this really sucks. Can you bring some context to it for me? And, it's like with me and my mom. Losing my mom at the time, it was really hard. Again, at least, she was in her 70s. It wasn't like she was really young and everything else. But of course, at the time, you're struggling. You're trying to say, I didn't want her to go and everything else. And then with what my partner went through, I realized this is why she had to go first, because I had to understand what it was like. I had to deal with it firsthand to be able to understand what she needed and her family needed to be supportive. Because I can tell you right now, Helen, the reality was if I wouldn't have lost my mom first and I wouldn't have gone through it, we may not have stayed together. I might have went my own way. Yeah.
So can you share some context around what it was that happened?
So, the years might not be exactly right, but I think it was 2018. It could have been 2019. She found out that her younger sister, who was only 32 or 34 at the time with 4 kids, she had terminal cancer. She had ovarian cancer. It was either ovarian or in fact, I think it was cervical. Thank you. And she, due to her religious beliefs, they thought that the kind of cancer treatment and all that's all a big scam. And so, they were basically, and folks, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not mocking anyone's faith, but they had very much this, we're going to pray it away type thing. Yeah. And I advised them from the get-go, you need to take this seriously because you can think, you believe in a higher power and all that, no problem. But I firmly believe in the saying that God helps those that help themselves. If there's something you can action as a person, do it. Don't wait. And sure enough, she waited. By the time she changed her mind and decided, I want to live, they said, you're overweight. If we put you under, the odds of you coming out of it are slim. So they refused to operate on her. And so there she was, 32 or 34, passed away, left her kids and everything else. So the family goes through that. Yeah. Yeah. And because I'd been through my mom passing very, a year or two before, I could 100% do. And I kept saying to my partner and to her family, this is what's going to happen. Then this is what's going to happen. Then this is what's going to happen. Because again, those stages of grief and everything else and how people process things. And I could be there and I could be supportive. Then sure enough, it was either I think it was in 2019. Yeah, in fact, I'm sure it was 2019. Then her mom, terminal cancer, 61 years old. And again, things that, because I had been through it with my mom, things that in the past I would have said no, I let happen and I was there for and I was supportive because again, I didn't want my partner to ever look back and blame me or say, I couldn't have my family around or, so I just basically let them do what they needed to do. And like I said, up to the point that when they couldn't get their mom released from the funeral home because nobody had the money, guess who went and got the money? Because again, once that moment passes, you can never go back and change it. So they needed to get her mom's body to Samoa for the burial and that. So I made it happen. And I firmly believe that if mom wouldn't have gone first, I wouldn't have had the context and everything else. And there was already tension and enough going on. I think there's a very good chance where we would have just went and did our own thing
Yeah.
because I'd gone through it, I could understand. So, yeah, I mean, cancer is a horrific thing. And I've said this many times, and I don't mean it. There is no joking or anything. If you gave me a wish, one wish in the world, it would not be for world peace. Or I would get rid of cancer. If you said to me, you can have one wish, and as a lot of people say, oh, come on, you'd want to be a billion. No, seriously, I've seen how much suffering and pain it brings to people, and I get that some of it oftentimes is our own self choices. Be it smoking, be it drinking, whatever. But at the end of the day, the suffering that it puts on those around the people with cancer, you gave me one wish, no more cancer. I mean, and I'm serious with that because I don't know a family it hasn't affected. Yeah.
I was just going to say exactly the same thing. Find me somebody who doesn't have a connection with somebody with cancer.
Very close friend of mine who's like a brother to me. He's basically the first friend I had in New Zealand. And I knew his partner because we all worked together in my first job here. And she was 46 years old, didn't smoke, didn't drink. She was like a choir girl. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is when you look at it from that kind of moral church going life, she ticked all those boxes, and she got brain cancer and passed away. And again, like, I get that there's other things in our environment, but all I'm saying is literally a teetotaler, never smoked anything else. She got a brain tumor, passed away. So what I'm saying is that, like you're saying, almost everyone I've ever talked to, if they haven't had someone in their family affected by it, they know someone who's been affected by it. And
well, we've had a fantastic chat about a lot of things, gone down a few rabbit holes and that. But, I want to ask you, what's happened to you today or this week that, has really made your day?
Well, this for one, I don't look, I'm not, I'm not trying to blow the trumpet, but this is the truth. I mean, having conversations like this mean a lot to me because they're very grounding. They remind us when we have a bad day and we're upset because someone's cut us off in traffic, or you went into the cafe and they didn't have the hamburger you wanted, or what, how minimal all of that stuff is in our lives, and how much BS we get caught up in the day-to-day life. And we say, oh, this is a big deal when it's really not. Another really positive thing to me was Valerie Adams. I don't know if you heard her talking about getting her bronze medal, but she basically said the bronze medal means more to her than winning the golds. And the reason she said that was having, had two kids and coming back and just letting mothers know that just because you've had kids doesn't mean that you can't, compete at a high level in whatever you want to do. And hearing things like that, another excellent one to me was Simone Biles, the gymnast, taking a step back and just saying, hey, look, I'm not mentally okay to do what I'm doing, and I need to take a step back. And make no mistake, she has taken a inordinate amount of grief in the U.S. Again, I can straddle that line because that's where I'm from. And I can tell you, as competitive as Australians are in the U.S., it's so much worse because if you turn up for a job interview, the odds are, like here in New Zealand, we'll go, oh, there were 4 other people up for the job. In the U.S., most of the time, there'll be 50 other people up for the job. So it is a super competitive life. But at the end of the day, I'm proud of her. And there have been other people in sports and that I've heard. And when you hear about a 24, 25, 26-year-old taking this stand, I mean, again, 20 years, that never would have happened because, again, with life experience, they just go, well, this is just how it is. And I have to suck it up and I have to get on with it. But then, unfortunately, we hear about people like Robin Williams or Anthony Bourdain and that, and you think everything's fine. And then, but they're not, like you say. Yeah. So all of those things. And again, I'm far from perfect. I say it on the program all the time. I'm a hypocrite. I do my best to put my money where my mouth is, but I'm a hypocrite. I'm human. And I try to do little things when I'm out and about. So let somebody in line in front of you in the supermarket. One time I try to treat myself every few months. I'll go downtown here to the town center. I'll go out and I'll have a nice cooked breakfast, just me. Go and have a nice cooked breakfast and a coffee. And one day there was a senior lady there. You could tell She was by herself, and she probably, as you do, you're out in the public, she probably sees dangers all around her. And I just went out of my way to just say to her on my way out, you have a nice day and you enjoy your day. You enjoy this sun. And you could just tell what it meant to her, because you look at me and I've got this big beard and I look a bit shabby because, again, I'm not in that 9 to 5 rat race right now. So I might look a bit intimidating to people, but you could see like she just lit up because she's like, oh, somebody's told me to have a nice day. And oftentimes, folks, that's all it takes. Yeah, it's great if you've got $10,000 and you can go and help out people, but that's not, oftentimes that's not what it takes. Tell someone in your life, yeah, thank you. Even if it's just somebody pays you a compliment, tell them thank you. It's sometimes it's little things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just being, just taking that time to be kind and give somebody a smile. And like you say, and I also want to say, when you mentioned Simone Biles, I thought she was incredibly courageous to do what she did, because she knew she was going to cop an awful lot of flack for making that decision. But she also knew that what she was doing was at the top of the technical difficulty. And if her mind wasn't in the right space, then who knows what could have happened. So hats off to her, because I think it wasn't an easy decision to make. And I think she tried to do the right thing by her teammates. Yeah. So.
And like she said, it's so easy and this is why, like on my show, when I have someone come on the program, it's so easy to pigeonhole people and say, this is the Loch Ness monster guy. This is what he does, or this is the UFO guy. But there's so much more to all of our lives. And as she said, I'm not just a gymnast, I'm a person. And I mean, the media, of course, has got a lot to blame for that. But yeah, in this world of sound bites and short attention spans and all that, it's so easy that people just ram us into these holes and they say, you're this because you know about this, or you're that. And that's what I always say to people. As with all of us, there's so much more to our lives. And on my program, if I've been reading a certain book or I've been watching the Olympics, I talk about it because yes, what I do and what I do on my program, I enjoy it. I love it, but there's so much more to me. There's so much more to you, Helen. There's so much more to everyone. We're not just our job title or, like I say, I've had this laugh so many times in my life. You look at me and especially when I'm a bit more cleaned up and trim beard and that, and you go, oh, there you go. There's your standard white male. But the thing is, most people don't know about me. I'm a mixed breed. I'm actually a quarter American Indian. And I've actually, when I was younger, I had people approach me more than once wanting me to join, like white power and that. And I'd laugh at them and say, that just goes to show how stupid you idiots are. You don't even know that I'm a mutt to you or I'm subhuman. And yes, trust me, you're a dead man and everything else. But to me, it's just hilarious because you can't judge a book by its cover. And we're all different. And to me, at the end of the day, this world would be so boring if everyone agreed with everything we did. And if everyone was like us. One of my favorite comics I've remembered for 30 years, the Far Side comics, you've seen those, yeah? With Gary Larson? Yeah. And it's kind of, he had this.
Yeah, I'm a great comic fan, but.
It's like in the paper, So I'll send it to you after because I'll find it online because it's great. And there's the earth sitting on a table and you've got God and he's wearing his chef's hat and he's got all these spices on the shelf. And he goes, this should shake things up a bit. And you look at all the little spice shakers and they say like nice people, this and that. He's got this shaker and he's shaking it on the earth and it says assholes, and I just thought, but at the end of the day, everything, those kind of people help put our lives in context as well, I think.
Everything is about balance. You've got to have the good with the not so good. Everything. Like I think of that all the time. You've got to have those lows to appreciate the highs. And yeah, 100%. That 100%. And I don't regret anything that's happened in my life. I've been through some tough times as well. And I just think that's made me a better, a stronger, a more caring, a kinder, a more compassionate person. And so.
And one last thing, and one last thing for the listeners as well. I do forget to say this sometimes because I'm very bad about it. Don't be too hard on yourself. Sometimes you got to look at what you did 10 years ago. We're looking at it with the 10 years of knowledge we've gained in the meanwhile. But at the time, you probably made the decision on the best information you had at the time. So all I'm saying is, it's easy to look through that backwards hindsight filter and say, oh, I screwed that up. I cocked it up, whatever. But at the time, you probably made the best decision you could have at the time with what information was in front of you. So, and it's good that we try and improve in our lives, but don't look back and just, say I'm such a horrible human, because there are people out there like that. And thankfully, most of them are locked behind bars. But most of us, we don't, it's not like we make these decisions with malice in mind and I'm going to make people suffer.
Right.
It's just the luck of the dice, unfortunately, sometimes the way things fall.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, John, just for an amazing time getting to know you so much better, getting to understand your journey, what makes you you, and the wonderful information that you've shared with us in this episode. I think it's going to really help our listeners out there just to gain a different perspective, and especially from a male. I love, love, love what you said about males needing to, especially here in New Zealand, needing to speak up and share their thoughts, share their feelings, and just be real, just be human. And it's all okay at the end of the day.
Hey, look, I had a great conversation. Beautiful. And also, I'll be in touch, Helen, because I'd love to have you come on my program and tell your story as well, because you've got an amazing story all your own.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode today, be sure to share it with others. Hit the subscribe or like button so you can be notified of each weekly episode. Also, let me know how I'm doing, especially if there's more you'd like to know that perhaps we didn't get time to touch on today or in past episodes. And if you're after resources to help you out on this journey, or more about the energy healing work I do, hit the Healing to Be You link. That's the word healing, 2, letter B, letter U.com. So until next time, be kind to you, and thank you for joining us on the beautiful side of grief.